Hello, I hope you're doing well. A lot of you in my previous video said that you would be interested in seeing my 2024 planner lineup video before the year starts. Now, before I go any further, don't worry. I will not be using all of these books for next year. It will be a little bit too much. But basically in this video, I'm going to be going over my plans for next year, as well as kind of what did not work for this year, which is why I have so many other things here. And obviously, since it's not 2024 just yet, I don't have any example spreads, but the plan is, I think in January, I will do a follow-up video and give you an update on how things are going. So, also a disclaimer, this is very excessive. If I had to pick one planner to use for the rest of my life, it would be the Hobonichi Cousin. It has everything that I need, and really, I really only need this. But even if you can't, for example, afford the Hobonichi Cousin, it is quite a pricey planner. You can recreate their layouts on or in your bullet journal notebooks, any notebook that you have. You can even print out some like printable inserts and stuff like that. So just definitely go with whatever you can. This is definitely way too excessive, but it just makes me really happy. So I did want to put that disclaimer out there. So a little bit about what didn't work for 2023 this year. So my lineup was these books. So I had my Hobonichi Cousin, which I used as my daily journal, as my work planner, and basically everything. I had a pocket bullet journal just for creative journaling and as a little supplement. I had my Hobonichi Weeks, which I used as a personal development planner. I had, this is the Kokuyo Campus, like purely monthly planner. This is what I used for like monthly business planning. And then I also had a reading journal. And it didn't really work for me because I feel like everything was a little too scattered. And I do think that I have a slightly better understanding of how my brain works with my planner system. So I will now get into what I have planned for 2024. So I posted on like various social medias that I am introducing the TakeANote A5 planner. I believe these are made in Taiwan. It's funny because I posted a screenshot of my order and it was 700 Taiwanese dollars. And a lot of people thought it was like US dollars. And I got so many DMs and comments of people questioning my spending choices, but I had to clarify that it was, Taiwanese dollars. So this is actually a relatively affordable planner. It is around, I think, $25. I can't quite remember. And this is their A5 size. And let me flip to a random page. So this is like a random week in August. You have this calendar, which is very similar to the Hobonichi Cousin. Then you have this section, which is kind of like a horizontal weekly overview. And this is actually really similar to the Hobonichi Weeks layout. You can see it's essentially identical, but obviously this is a little bit more condensed, but it's basically these like horizontal spaces. And then each day is a vertical column that occupies half of the page. So this is like essentially a hybrid of the Hobonichi Cousin. So the Hobonichi Cousin has a weekly section. As you can see, each day is like a timeline column. Very skinny though, compared to the TakeANote planner. And then we also have the daily section, which is like a full page dedicated to each day. But the TakeANote planner is half a page and it also has a timeline. So this is basically what it looks like for every single week. There is also like a yearly section. I think this is more like a habit tracker, which I don't plan on using. We have a very similar perpetual calendar, similar to the Hobonichi Cousin. And then there's also this monthly section. So I think that is it. There's also like some note pages in the back, After telling everyone that I bought this planner, the number one question that I got is, why aren't you using the Hobonichi Cousin anymore? And the answer to that is I am still going to be using the Hobonichi Cousin. I got the Hobonichi Cousin Avec system, which is essentially the same thing as the original Hobonichi Cousin, except it is split into 2 books. So this is a full year one, which I have been using, and then this is the Avec system. This goes from January to June, and then I have another book for July to December. The layout and everything is the exact same, just split into 2 books. However, the way that I will be using the Hobonichi Cousin for next year will be different from how I have been using for the past few years. So let's just go from the beginning. This is a perpetual calendar. You can see that I split it into 2 columns. The narrower column, I'm going to be using it to track my movement. So I have this color-coded steps tracker as well as a workout tracker. And this is what I will be migrating from the Hobonichi Weeks. So last year in the Hobonichi Weeks, I used this as my personal planner, and this is where I kept track of all of my workouts. As you can see, I did a little dot for all of my steps, and then I did a very similar key code for my workouts. As you can see, I was actually very consistent with it, and it made me very satisfied and happy. So I definitely want to continue that into 2024. But instead of having it in a separate book, I'm just gonna keep it in here. So I really like this idea of splitting this column. And then in the wider column, I'm just gonna write down all of the important dates like birthdays, anniversaries, appointments, stuff like that. And then for the bottom section, I am going to continue what I have been doing this year, which is making a little doodle at the bottom of each month. I think it looks really nice. So just something fun to look forward to at the end of every month. So that is the yearly section. For the monthly section, this is where I plan to mark in all of my deadlines, more specifically like my work deadlines. And by doing this, I'm kind of annihilating this notebook, which I have been using for this year. Let me just show you. Oh, so this is like the key that I have been using. I have a color for new releases, designing, submitting production, shipment, and personal deadlines. And this is just like an example of how I used this calendar for this year. I found this to be really, really helpful. Again, similar to the workout tracker, I just felt like it was unnecessary to have a completely separate book when I have a perfectly good calendar here. So I'm basically just doing something like this in my Hobonichi Cousin, hence getting rid of this book. So really excited to get that going. For the weekly section, this is just going to be my schedule, very similar to this year. I don't really have much to add. Let me just show you an example in case you're new. I do change up like the way I mark things from week to week, just depending on how I feel. But yeah, this is just going to be the outlines of my day and my weekly schedule. And then the daily section is where I will be changing it up the most. So this year for the daily section, and actually for the past like several years, what I have been doing is making a daily to-do list on this side. And then on this side, I just write down anything that happens during the day, basically using it as my journal. And honestly, like it's been working pretty well. And if I continue doing this next year, I have no problems with it. I guess I just wanted to change things up a little bit and see how things go. So for next year, this column, I still plan on using it as my to-do list. I found this to be like the perfect space for longer to-do list days as well as shorter to-do list days. And for clarity, I ignore the timeline that they pre-print over here. It doesn't really mean much to me. The difference is for this section, I will no longer be using it as a daily journal. Instead, and I'm a little bit nervous about this, I will sometimes just have this blank, and sometimes I will be using it to do brainstorming, taking notes, sketches, new release plans, stuff like that. And instead, I will be doing my daily journaling in my Take a Note planner. So as I showed earlier, each day takes up half the page, and this is where I will be doing something very similar to what I have been doing in my Hobonichi Cousin. So a daily prompt, and then writing about what happens during the day, any funny stories and stuff like that. And the reason why in my brain currently I think this is perfect is because when I was using the Hobonichi Cousin for this year and the past few years, there are certain days where I had a lot of trouble filling up the entire page, which is totally fine. But then there were also other days where I was doing like for example, Cyber Monday brainstorming, and I don't know, let's see. Also, I like to write down the recipes I use. Here's another example. I was taking notes on a podcast that I was listening to, and I also got like a note from a friend, and I had to like layer everything. So the point is, some days were very empty, and then other days I just basically ran out of space, because especially when I do brainstorming and ideas and sketches and all of that, I just go on, and I felt kind of restricted by the space of the Hobonichi Cousin. So I think this is great because, oh my gosh, there's notebooks everywhere. This column in the Take a Note planner is smaller than or narrower than the Hobonichi Cousin. So this would be a lot more manageable for the days where I just don't have too much to journal about. Totally fine. And I think this is like a reasonable amount to write every single day. But on the days where I have a lot more going on, or I just have a lot more ideas and things that I wanted to take notes on, I can then extend that into the Hobonichi Cousin, and I have this giant space to do so, and I don't feel as restricted. I hope I did a decent job explaining my thought process there. So ultimately, I will still be using the Hobonichi Cousin every day, especially this column for my to-do list. Oh, also another thing. I need to find an example. Okay, I don't want to flip through my entire book trying to find a better example, but you get the idea. So sometimes when I make my to-do list, I want to expand on it. So I like to do speech bubbles or like an arrow, but then this kind of impedes my journaling. So sometimes it's not a problem, but other times like I just run out of space. So that is another reason why oh no. Okay, it's just a fluff. That is another reason why I want to keep this section a lot freer, just for any thoughts and notes and stuff like that. And going back to this, as I said earlier, the monthly section of this calendar that I've been using for this year is redundant, because I will be doing this in the monthly section of my Hobonichi Cousin. But also the back of this calendar has a bunch of grid pages, and I have been using this to do all of my like sketching and brainstorming for events, and I will be doing this in my Hobonichi Cousin from now on. So again, this is another reason why this has been made redundant. I will say though, I really enjoyed using this notebook, and I think this can be a really good notebook for anyone, and I think it's relatively affordable. And then going back to my Take a Note planner, I don't plan on doing any tracking here. I don't want to get too ambitious with like tracking everything in my life, because I will be the first to admit I am the worst at keeping up with habit trackers. At the beginning of the year, I'm always like, I'm gonna create this like super satisfying year in pixels sort of habit tracker, but it never works out. For the monthly section, I don't have any really ambitious plans, but I think I will just make this a memory keeping monthly overview since this is where I will be doing my journaling, which I think is a lot more personal, I have been considering on getting like a portable printer, like a mini printer, and maybe I will paste pictures and receipts and stuff like that in here, but we will see. I don't have any, like, again, ambitious plans for this section. But yeah, hopefully I explained myself well. These planners are going to be my main planners, and just as a succinct overview, in my Take a Note planner, this is where I will be doing all of my daily journaling. And then in my Hobonichi Cousin, this is where I will put down my daily to-do list, and any extra journaling that I can't fit in here, I will put over here in this section. I will also do my shop brainstorming, sketches, ideas, as well as like notes in this section if I have it for that day. Maybe some days it'll be blank and other days it'll be super full and populated. On the subject of taking notes, I have been using a reading journal this year where I have been taking notes of the books that I read, and I have really been enjoying this and keeping up with it. It's super satisfying to see all of the writing. And again, I do plan on keeping up with this still. The thing is, I think I will limit this journal to all of the fiction books that I read, and then any non-fiction books I will take notes in here. And I've been sitting here for like 5 minutes trying to explain why I'm making this change and this distinction, but it's just making sense in my brain that I want my nonfiction notes in here and then my fiction notes in here, and I don't want them muddled up together. So yeah, that's just another change that I will be making. All right, and then lastly, I think you guys are pretty much familiar with these two, so I'm not gonna talk too much about it, but this is my pocket bullet journal. I don't use this every single day. I just use it whenever I feel like it. And I often get questions why I bother with this if I have like these two full planners here. And it's just a way for me to get creative with layouts, with doodles. A lot of like doodles I make in here, I eventually turn into stickers for the shop, which I think is a wonderful thing. Is this necessary? Absolutely not, but it does really make me happy to use, and I just make a lot of fun doodles. I also find this to be a really good journal to do my, let me find one. So for example, this is the 2024 monthly kids progress tracker, and I think this is just like a perfect succinct tracker to refer to whenever I finish something. So yeah, again, just a fun little book that I plan on continuing into 2024. I do not start a new book with every year. I just keep it rolling, and whenever I finish one, it can be in the middle of the year, end of the year, beginning of the year, I just move on to the next book. So yeah, this one I started in August of this year, and I will just use it until I finish it. And then this is pretty much a book that I started just because we recently got an emoji branded Leuchtturm, and I wanted to find a use for it, and that is all. And this is what I have been using for my daily reflections. I have a section for things that I'm grateful for, things that I'm proud of, and things that I want to work on. Absolutely unnecessary. I can totally figure out a way to fit this into these two notebooks, but again, it just makes me so happy that first of all I get to use all of my washi tapes each day, and also I get to use this pretty little notebook. So yeah, I think just the fact that it makes me happy is all the justification that I need. I then want to quickly touch on why I will no longer be using the Hobonichi Weeks, and I do not want to offend anyone because there are a lot of Hobonichi Weeks fans out there, and my goodness, I go on Instagram and I see these beautiful spreads, and I so wish I could make it work for myself, and I have genuinely tried. This is in fact I think my 3rd or 4th Hobonichi Weeks, but every single time I tell myself I will make the Hobonichi Weeks work for me, I never finish it. I stopped using this in September. yeah, I've not used it for the past few months. So this was supposed to be my personal planner, and I thought this would be good because I don't have a lot of personal things going on in my life, so I thought this like little section would be nice so I don't have like the pressure of filling it out. But I don't know, it didn't really work with my brain. As you can see, like I tried so many different layouts. I really tried, guys, but it just didn't work for me, and I think that's okay. It again works super well for other people, and I think overall like this looks great, but I just, again, it didn't really serve a purpose for me. Like I would track my food, but then I basically eat the same food every single day, so it kind of became redundant. And then it got to a point where I was starting to look for things in my personal life to write down, because otherwise this would just be completely blank, since my personal life is pretty much non-existent. Okay, that sounds a little sad, but yeah, so that is the only reason why I am no longer using this. I tried doing mood tracking, but I can totally do mood tracking in my other planners as well. So yeah, that is that. I think I will probably delude myself into getting a Hobonichi Weeks next year and thinking that it'll work, but for now, it's a no for me. Okay, this has been a very chatty video. I hope the things that I said made sense. Overall, I think this will really work for me because I am combining like aspects of every planner that I like into the few planners that I will be using. So for example, the workout tracker in the Hobonichi Weeks, as well as the deadlines of this planner, as well as like the sketches of this planner, I will be combining it into the Hobonichi Cousin, as well as like some of the book notes for the nonfiction books that I read will also go into my Hobonichi Cousin. And then my Take a Note will serve as a journal. And then these are just extras where if I need it, I will use it. So yeah, I don't know if I'm being too ambitious, but I will definitely keep you guys updated a month into using it next year. So yeah, if you have your planner lineup basically finalized or something, definitely let me know in the comments down below. I know a lot of you are using the new Sterling ink common planners. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.